So, I just saw a video from Ring of Fire, Fire Cousins, saying about the factor that apparently there is a secret room that there potentially could have ended up being more classified documents. Alright? Now, keep in mind with the amount of sensationalism, just want to clarify something because apparently it was said that, apparently capability of secret room, behind a dresser and a television. Alright? Now, let's say, hypothetically, we were talking about the, specifications of where I was living. Alright? Now, I remember there was this plastic panel that was held in by four. Sorry, getting distracted by the deer. Say hello. Hello. Sorry about that. So, let's say, for example, alright, you were trying to go ahead in some form or another to try to get away with making the specifications of a place where you are trying to sell. You're trying to claim that there are more rooms than there are. Alright? Like, for example, this door right here. Alright? This door, it would be like the same as trying to claim that this door, this would count as a room. Alright? Well, meantime, this is not actually a room. Alright? On the opposite side of this door would be counted as a closet. Reason why? On the other wall is actually consisted of the stairway. Alright? So, let's go ahead and measure. Alright? Let's say, let's say, for example, you're a realtor or renter who was, trying to get away with defrauding a bank because the rental property that you were trying to rent did not match the specifications of the loan you were trying to get. Alright? So this tape measure right here. Alright? This right here is about 3 feet. Alright? Now, that panel was 3 feet by 2 feet. Alright? Now, the thing about it, though, on the opposite side of that panel was the wall that divides the bedroom from the stairway. Alright? So, in width, it would be this wide. How would that be considered a room? That would be first off. Second off, ultimately, depends on how long it's been and how much time has been there. Who else has been in and out? Because you got to remember, alright, getting another warrant would be considered unconscionable because of the factor that it would be considered an extended search, which the Supreme Court would have to go ahead and acknowledge was an extended search, past the limitations of what was allowed. Alright? Not to mention that, but there would actually need to be cause. Alright? So, it's been a bust as far as classified documents. Alright? Well, meantime, how many people have been there? Going in and out. Alright? Since that point in time. How many people could have planted something? within that time. Not to mention that, but ultimately, how would it be known if there was a quote-unquote secret room? How is it known that that secret room was even known about by the person who, is being investigated? Not to mention that, but ultimately, guy may be a fucking creep in my opinion. Alright? I mean, popular consensus. But, Melania style consultant, like the amount of money that it seems like has been, getting embezzled and defrauded, by her. Yeah. That kind of makes it seem like, she might have, been trying to go ahead and frame the guy. So, reason I'm making this statement is because of the factor, first off, let's give the example of my past legal woes, alright? Because of people trying to make a case off of hearsay, alright? So, my license ended up getting suspended because somebody else who has the same name but 2 letters off ended up getting caught going, and keep in mind, they also were originally from New York, ended up getting caught in North Carolina with 289 grams of cocaine and $64,000, which would be enough to go ahead and get them on, drug manufacturing or drug trafficking with intent to distribute. All right? That would be enough for a federal indictment. Now, my situation, I had my mom, once upon a time, try to get an order of protection, all right? Trying to prevent me from being able to move, all right? Well, simultaneously, keep in mind, wanted an order of protection saying, a stay-away order, while simultaneously wanting conservatorship, which means you were under my control, I maintain power of attorney over you. Which, in order to make the best choices without ending up in dereliction of fiduciary duty, you would have to go ahead and be in some form of contact with the person that you are supposed to be maintaining some type of financial responsibility over. So being no contact with somebody that you also want, discretionary, measures taken to be able to control their finances, you would need to be in contact. Otherwise, the improprieties and potential of financial abuse escalates drastically. So, I ended up in a situation that, I had apparently a whole, bond situation, a potential revoked bond. Now, keep in mind, too, it was claimed that I ended up going ahead and trying to, skip bond. All right? While at the same time, got racially profiled, my license got suspended on the assumption of a failure to appear. All right? Now, keep in mind, I never got to go ahead and plead in court and tried claiming basically that me ending up 6 months on a 120-day max, assumed guilt, wouldn't release me without, literally entering no contest. All right? Which is supposed to mean, neither guilty nor innocent, and the assumption of time served with the blemish on your record. Now, keep in mind, Miranda rights never read, and literally, if it were brought back to a court in appeals, the Department of Justice would have to go ahead and argue how I could simultaneously fail to appear while at the same time get considered in contempt of court. Because in order to get hit with a contempt of court, you would have to appear at court, which would go ahead and prove the lie of failure to appear. Which also would end up going ahead and proving the factor of my 8th Amendment constitutional right of, not being exposed to cruel and unusual punishment, as well as over excessive bail, which would mean that all of that money on the presumption of guilt, because of the tainting of the procedure, would have to go ahead and be returned. All right? So it's not a, bond revoke situation. It's literally the bail bond company would have to go ahead and make a full refund. And they don't want to do that. While at the same time, too, they don't want to bring it back to court, but not bringing it back to court is actually considered a human rights violation. All right? Like, literally, it is considered a war crime. All right? So, because of that war crime, they'd be considered complicit in hate crime, which would end up falling under the 1964 KKK Act, which means that there would be no statute of limitations on how long on the timing that I would have to be able to sue. All right? And it also eliminates the cap on the amount that I would be able to sue for. So do you understand? And keep in mind, too, with the attempt of trying to taint the procedural order, the Department of Justice would also have to go ahead and try to argue how it could be in two places at once because of a quote-unquote clerical error, all right? Now, keep in mind, during the process of my disability, determination and, overall assessment, somebody ended up going and putting the factor that in August of 2002, that apparently I ended up applying for disability in Hickory when I had never been to Hickory until 2014. All right? While at the same time, too, the accusations that, allegedly were from back in New York State, which I hadn't been in since 2012, 2013. So, ultimately, how could I simultaneously be in North Carolina and New York at the same time? Not to mention that, but with the attempted accusations that there were, the statute of limitations would end up going ahead and being reached anyway. So, I'm just saying, look at those factors. Even representing myself, there is not a law firm in this country with having all the evidence and all the facts backing my testimony that would want to go ahead and have to bring this case to trial. Because bringing this case to trial would mean the Department of Justice getting one of the biggest, most massive losses that they have ever gotten in their history. And for the person to end up going ahead and bringing that, to know the factor that they had been studying law, and that ultimately they opted to go ahead and represent themselves. Do you think the Department of Justice wants to take that type of loss? Because, understand, too, that would end up destroying the legal profession as a whole, too. Because ultimately, the one thing that lawyers end up having to go ahead and be able to back their claim is, oh, you do not want to step into a courtroom without having some form of legal representation. Understand, if you walk into that courtroom trying to represent yourself, that court will eat you alive. Just remember that.